Our next artist is someone who has played a pivotal role within our Vibrant Brampton Festival. Sharon Vandrish is the resident musical director and president of Brampton Music Theatre. She has a degree in music, classical voice, and one in education. She worked for 10 years as a music teacher at a prestigious art school and has been the music director of over 30 musicals in and around the GTA. Sharon's musical journey takes her all the way back to when she was in kindergarten.
Believe it or not, my mother has a picture of me when I was 5 years old in kindergarten conducting our little triangle and stick class. So it started when I was pretty young. I used to sing and play the piano, and in high school I got involved in the music department, and it just kind of took off from there. I went to university for classical voice, and then I went on to University of Toronto for Teachers College. I was heavily involved in the arts as a child in Brampton, though, with Brampton Music Theatre, and I think it was called Peel Panto Players back then. But I really took off as a musical director after I finished school, and I started teaching at Coffey Park Secondary School, which is a performing arts school. And I began to direct musicals in and around the Greater Toronto area. So I've done about 35 or 40 shows. I took a long break when my children were young, and it was too cost prohibitive for me to go and continue doing musicals when I had to pay babysitters and stuff. But I would say I came back to Brampton Music Theatre in 2011 and have been with them for the last decade as the resident musical director and the president of the organization.
Through her work in musicals, Sharon draws from many legends when it comes to her inspirations.
I was really inspired by Barbra Streisand and the early musicals that she did. So Funny Girl, Funny Lady, what's the one that she did that's Don't Rain on My Parade is from that. Gosh, I should know this. So she was very, very prominent with her. I liked the early musicals, West Side Story, and some of the what we might call traditional Fiddler on the Roof. But if you jump ahead to today, I'm just as inspired by Idina Menzel, who was in Wicked and played Elphaba, and some of the newer talents as I am of ones that were, 30 years ago, 40 years ago when I was just a little thing. So I have a pretty open mind, and having taught high school, you kind of have to keep an open mind when it comes to music. So my tastes are everywhere from, watched Eminem, was all over that, to I'm doing a course on Tuesday for seniors in isolation in Peel, and I'm teaching them about appreciation of classical music. So it's all over the place. And I think that really helps keep me relevant to both young and old people.
Producing musicals is a huge task and requires a lot of coordination. With her many years of experience, Sharon's been able to master her own approach when putting on shows.
It's pretty involved and evolved, I would say, over time. I mean, we are a team of artists that start the process. I'm usually the executive producer of most of the shows, but like, for example, this year I'm taking a break from both Sound of Music and Cinderella, but we have artistic director, musical director, choreographer. The producer sort of has control over budgetary things. They usually hire, although the board does that. But it's really about getting into the head of the original composer and lyricist. For me, as a musical director, I like to go back to the purest note on the page. Surprisingly enough, when you listen to a lot of musicals, you'll find that you're not actually listening to exactly what was written, but it might be their interpretation. So sometimes, a really good example, we did Jesus Christ Superstar a couple years ago, and I was working with the person who was playing Judas, Chris Ning, and I had him sing some of the numbers, and I went back to my score and I said, that's not what's written, right? And he's like, well, this is the way I've always sung it, which is like the recording. So my process is really to forget everything you've ever heard about the show and the artist that your favorite is, your favorite to be doing that role, and let's go back to the notes on the page, and let's actually learn them as written, and then let's make something your own. So I'm not for, directors would call like line reading in a rehearsal, where they'll say it like this. That's a line read. That's not giving artistic integrity to the performer, in my opinion. That is imposing yours. So I try to draw out from them their interpretation musically, and I have done some directing as well, artistically, as opposed to them imitating something or someone that they've heard. Because that to me is not true art, that is imitation. And although imitating someone is flattering in my world, I would rather someone do their own interpretation, even if it strays from what we've seen or heard before, than try to pretend to be someone else doing that role. So from that point, I mean, with the integrity that you give each performer, I think it empowers them to become their best self in the process. And I find that I feel that I'm grateful to have a gift to push people enough to rise to their own talent and put on the best version of them in that role, instead of, as I mentioned, them trying to imitate someone else.
So close at hand, Lord, these men are hungry.
The pandemic has had a major impact on musicals and live performances. For Sharon, it's been a time of reflection and resilience.
But Brampton Music Theatre was typically somewhat supported for our rental space by the city. Well, it was supported. We were in subsidized space that we shared with 3 other groups. So in about 2018, I think, the city sold the building we were in, and we were homeless. So we got into a 5-year lease. It was expensive. We went from $600 a month to $6,000 a month, but we were doing well financially, and we could afford with the ticket sales to do that. But so we moved in 2018, the fall of 2018. So we were basically there a year and a half when COVID hit. And I showed the owner of, the CFO of the property management company that if you keep us in this lease, we'll become bankrupt by October just by paying the rent of $6,000 a month until October, when we'll have 0 revenue in 2019. So Brampton Music Theatre, contrary to what some people think, is not funded by anybody else but ourselves and our ticket sales and our hard work and our talent. So we don't get funding, we don't get grants, the city doesn't do anything in that regard to support our existence. We do co-produce musicals at the theater, but our money comes from being able to produce a show. So we do 2 adult and 2 youth productions a year. So you take out the entire source of income, we're like a fish out of water, or like we're dead in the water, so to speak. So thankfully, the property management company let us out of the lease, and I knew immediately when March hit that we had to act fast in order to save our funds. So we got out of our lease by the end of May, which was great. The city then helped us by giving us a little temporary storage space at the studio at Lester B. Pearson. And then we had to quickly pivot because we shut down our physical location, but how are we going to stay relevant? We put on what we called master classes, which were online courses that you could take with like Broadway stars. I brought in a couple of Broadway stars that had worked with us in the past, and we did master classes for youth and adults. We did a series of viewings of past musicals that we had the video rights for. We invited the cast, and we did it all online, and we streamed it on Twitch, and that went on for several months. And then in the fall, we did a concert series where we asked past leads and roles to the musicals that we did to submit a half-hour concert, and we put 3 of them together. And so every Saturday night or Thursday night, I forget when it was, we gave people free, the at-home series is what we called it, free concerts, and they could sing whatever they wanted. And that was very well received, and that was what we did in 2020. In 2021, we actually started to try and put a show back together, again, working very supported by the theater and Danny Harvey and Stephen Shipper at the theater. We started Songs for a New World, and then stopped Songs for New World, and then started Songs for New World, and then stopped Songs for New World, and started. But we finally managed to stream it in September, and then in August we said we're going to go ahead and try and do a musical with a really, really small cast. So we did Little Shop of Horrors, and I'm happy to say that in November, when we finally put it on, we sold about 78% of available seats in the Rose Theatre, which was only 200, but we felt it was a great step forward in getting people more comfortable with coming back out to theatre and knowing that you can be safe. And at the beginning of each show, I actually stood up and said, you're part of a very special moment.
Take a look at the children who believe in this promised land. You gotta have mercy, Lord, have mercy, Lord. Give us strength so that we can grow. Stop.
Through this resilience, Sharon feels hopeful for the future of musical theater.
It is a choice every day to get up and be positive about anything and everything in your life. So I have had quite a bit of tragedy in my life. I lost my son a few years ago, and you could choose to either let that determine who you're going to be and how your life is going to be affected, or you're going to look for the blessings. So I look for the blessings in the last 2 years, like the city being able to house our belongings for 8 months, for the city being supportive in us trying to mount a show and not charging us to be in the theater when we filmed it because we didn't make any money on it. I look for the positivity in people who want to gather instead of the fear of those who don't. So I try to bring that positivity to everything I do. By profession, I'm a Reiki master now, so I'm an energy healer. So it's kind of natural for me to want to bring out the positive in every situation and to share that energy with others, which does tend to happen. And also because music naturally raises your vibration, you just get people singing and dancing, and all of a sudden they're in a better mood. And that's a natural occurrence because of what music does to change our energy. So it's just who I am. But someone once described me, that song, I get knocked down, but I get up again. It's like, I don't stay down very long. I don't let the past or whatever happened yesterday dictate my present or my future. I just keep going and trust that, that things are evolving as they should. And with the right attitude, I think you can do anything.
I wore this very same coat. My mama said, son, if you stay on the path, you'll find a river full of money where the rich fish float.
And if Sharon was to put the musical productions she's produced into a capsule and someone discovered them 50 years from now, here's how she would want people to feel.
I think the same as they would if they would witness it live. And that's one of the beauties of live theater is that it's a very in the moment experience. So it's hard when you record something to get the nuance of the silence that you hear when there's a very impactful moment in the audience and not one breath could be heard, or the incredible impact at the end of a note when the conductor's arm is still up and cuts off the ensemble and there's that moment before the applause begins. You don't get that same impact when you're in live theater. And one of the reasons that I think live theater has stayed so true to its form and not allowing you to record and produce work is because it is an in-the-moment art. And your memories should be here and here, in your heart and in your mind, connected to your heart, which made you feel something when you attended that event, as opposed to watching it on a screen, which is very, flat and one-dimensional. The experience of being with other people who are experiencing something altogether is magnificent and a gift of the arts. So I would hope that somehow they could get that same impression or feeling by watching the videos 50 years from now. But I think there's a part of them that can never, kind of go back to when it was happening.
It's just luck. The sinner and the saint can wind up the same, 'cause it's all luck. It's all luck. It's just luck that decides between the noose and the knife. It's all luck. It's all luck. It's just luck when you're begging to switch with some rich son of a bitch who ain't never done nothing to deserve that life. It seems so easy to run until there's nowhere to go. You never get much for the dues you pay. You never go far on the easy way. There isn't much choice but to kneel and pray for the river, the river, the river.